The revolt against surveillance has gained enormous support from internet users and was backed by Edward Snowden himself. Many websites and human rights groups across the globe have joined together in the so-called Reset the Net campaign aimed at promoting a spy-free World Wide Web. Users, developers and content providers are being urged to use spy-resistant software tools. Ray McGovern is a former CIA analyst. Very pleased to say he joins me now live to talk about it a bit more. Hi there, nice to see you again. We last spoke, didn't we, here in Moscow last October. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's focus first of all and look back on the last 12 months and particularly the words we just heard Edward Snowden say then. His biggest worry was that nothing would actually change. Looking back 12 months, was that a fair comment or not? Will his worries come true?
No, well, his worries were well-founded, but even on October 9, when we saw him in Russia, we were able to joke about that because so much had been happening that surely he had made an impact beyond all expectations. Now, how it all comes out in the end, that remains to be seen. But his major worry about nothing happening, that was assuaged even as we saw him on the 9th of October.
What about for ordinary people, though? What's changed for them, the way their information's spied on, disseminated, etc.?
Well, ordinary people here are being subjected to the use of this illegally acquired information by agencies like the Drug Enforcement Agency or even the Internal Revenue Service. It's very sinister. What happens is they gain the initial information from these illegal techniques, and then they pursue what they call a parallel construction, where they investigate using what they call normal or legal investigative techniques to make a case against people. It's totally unconstitutional, totally illegal, and that's the primary use that's being made of that information here in the United States right now, despite our Constitution.
As well as what might change from the information that the whistleblowers come out about, what's changed for the world of whistleblowers? You're one yourself. Edward Snowden, though, is still here in exile in Russia. He can't go back to America. Has the world got any easier for a whistleblower in the last 12 months?
Well, the United States government is certainly not trying to make it any easier, but with the example of Edward Snowden, a person who risked literally everything and survived and achieved his mission, and ironically speaking, is in the safest place on the face of the globe that he could ever be, even though he had no intention of ending up in Russia. That's an example that can be promulgated now for those who might be inclined to do the right thing. The other thing is has to do with his colleagues near and far. One very small anecdote has to do with a colleague that worked with him in Hawaii, and she came to Forbes magazine, and she said, "I'm really upset about the character assassination going on about Edward Snowden. He really doesn't deserve this kind of treatment because what I want to tell you is that he kept at his desk a copy of the Constitution of the United States, and he used to wing it out every now and then and say, look at that Fourth Amendment. Are we acting in consonance with that? And we always say, Ed, for Pete's sake, you're making six figures, a lot of money. It's nice here in Hawaii. Forget about it. Now, that same source of Forbes said initially it was hard to understand why he did it, but as the events came by, she could understand quite well why he did it, because it was, as she put it, totally in consonance with his character.
Ray,
now, that speaks a lot. She ended up saying...
Thanks for coming to the studio. We've got to leave it there. We're out of time. Ray McGovern, former CIA analyst, and indeed whistleblower yourself. Nice to see you again.